All right. So, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you here, Universal Mastery. So, what we're going to be doing in this today's video is we are going to take a deeper look into these ritualistic types of parties that a lot of these higher level entertainment industry uh, leaders set up. What exactly are they designed for? What exactly do they do? And why do they exist in the first place? What's actually going on? So, when it comes to P. Diddy and having these really crazy parties where there's a lot of weird things that are taking place at these parties, there's going to be a lot of significant ritualistic types of symbolism. People are going to have to wear certain types of things. They're going to be chanting certain types of things. They're going to be doing certain types of things, right? What's actually going on here? And is this something that is actually real? Like, is this something that really takes place in real life? Or is this something just getting amplified and over exaggerated within the collective consciousness? I even have personal experience with being invited to one of these higher level A-list types of parties that you only can gain access to if you actually know someone or if you are personally invited. So I have a personal experience with it, and I do know certain things that a lot of people don't know about these things because I have personal experience with kind of being involved a little bit with some of the energy that goes behind what happens at these parties. And I will be explaining a little bit about my personal experience. And then what we're going to do is we are going to watch over a video from another person who's on YouTube that has their own experience going to one of these parties, personally getting invited, being involved in this like higher, what's the word? Oh, it's 1111. Look at that. What are the odds of that? Getting involved uh with sort of this group of people that were up and coming in regards to entertainment and then getting an invite to one of these more secretive types of ritualistic parties. So we're going to be breaking down that video as well, and we're going to see what kind of stuff comes up to the surface as we are taking this deeper look. So with that being said, if this is a video that you are interested in and you want to learn a lot more about, then I highly recommend that you stay tuned, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so here we are. So the first place that I want to start with this is I want to start with the reality that yes, these parties are very real. There are these very sinister, intentioned gatherings that take place to sort of indoctrinate people into a certain way of living or into a certain lifestyle, where at the top of that hierarchy, there is going to be some severely sociopathic and narcissistic individuals that are trying to manipulate other human beings to have a sense of control. These things are 110% real. And in these parties, there are going to be certain acts, certain manifestations of things that are going on that are going to be really counterproductive to the intuition and instincts of someone who is connected to their authentic self, which basically means A lot of the things that you're going to be experiencing when you go to these parties are going to be red flags that are going to be really enticing to some of your lower desires when it comes to, money, sex, and drugs. And it is going to look like it's something that's really fun and that you're going to be feeling really good up front, but it's going to have long-term consequences because with what's going on, it is very ungrounded, it's very unhealthy, and there are a lot of people with not great intentions that are driving the entire process. And the whole purpose is to kind of get you sucked into the system so that then you can be manipulated and you can be controlled once you are inside of it. So these parties are real, as I was saying, and there are even ritualistic components that go behind these parties that actually have deeper um, mechanisms of being able to manipulate consciousness through the unconscious and through the subconscious of the person that is participating or the person who's engaging with this type of party. So for me, back in 2019, this is when I first moved to South Beach, Miami, and I lived really close to Ocean Drive. I lived on 7th Street. I was a personal trainer at Equinox, and I would work with different clients while I was there. Now, at this time, I was also getting myself into occultism and I was going through a cult initiation. This was something I was doing with myself and by myself. I was not engaged with a certain order or a certain group of people. It was with me. And as I was going through these occult initiations, I opened up an energetic doorway to what is known as the Qlippoth. And when I started working with the Qlippoth, there was some pretty crazy things that started shifting in my life. And of course, inside of myself as well. One of these crazy manifestations that took place very early on is when I was working at Equinox, I had this really crazy random encounter with a guy that would consistently go there as his main gym. He came to the front desk to ask if there was headphones, and I was standing there and they told him no. So he said he was going to go home. I had my AirPods on me that I was not using, so I let him know that he could use them as long as he just brought them back when he was done. He was very taken back by that because in his words, he never came across someone that was so nice or kind to be able to do something like that. So he used my AirPods, he did his workout, and then he returned back. And when he was done, he ended up handing me a card that was one of his business cards. And he said, I really appreciate the fact that you let me use your AirPods. I've never come across someone that's been that kind before. I just want you to know that I do a certain type of basically energy work and massage therapy. And if you are interested in having a free, a free session from me, I would be more than happy to give you one. So just here's my card, send me a message, and let me know if that's something you're interested in. So I did a little bit of research on his business and his background, and he seemed very legit. His prices were really high. So I decided that I was going to go forward with it. So I sent him a message and then we set up a session. When I went to go see him for the first time, I pulled up into this neighborhood in somewhere in South Beach, Miami. I forget exactly where it is, but I pulled up into this neighborhood that is a really high end neighborhood. There are some really serious homes there that are mansion like homes. And when I got to his address, there was an entire gate that was blocking me from getting in. So the home had its own gate and it was a mansion. Um, so I called him and I asked him for the code and he gave me the code and I typed it in and opened the gate and then I went in and basically he didn't own the mansion. It wasn't his, but he was the personal massage therapist for the woman who owned the mansion. and he lived in the guest house that was right next to the mansion. So, and that's where he ran his business. So I got to connect with him, get to know him a little bit more. Long story short, this is a long story, but I'll keep it short. As I got to know him, I got to realize that he had an entire background within the entertainment industry because he was a professional massage therapist that actually worked directly with certain celebrities. One of these celebrities that he worked with and he was just recently living with full time as their personal masseuse was Matt Damon. And he actually even showed me where Matt Damon lived because I got to know him a little bit more. We went on a bike ride one day in that neighborhood because he wanted to show me around what it looked like and everything. And he actually took me to Matt Damon's house. We didn't go inside, it was just outside and there's a gate and everything. And this is, I guess, maybe one of Matt Damon's houses. I'm sure he has more, but he showed me where Matt Damon lived. Um, and I got to see his property and it was pretty interesting. Um, so he had worked with other celebrities as well. And he had been to many different events and many different parties where he was able to meet a whole bunch of other types of celebrities and people that are just involved with the entertainment industry in general. So, in other words, he had some background understandings and background knowledge of the entertainment industry from personal experience. And now that I was starting to work with him, he was giving me a lot of insight and a lot of understandings and a lot of clarity on some of the things that he experienced when he was meeting these different people and what it was like kind of being involved in that scene. Now, at one point, he even invited me, if I wanted to go to a specific party with him that was a party that he said that Lady Gaga would host a couple times within the year in South Beach. And I remember when he invited me to this party, at the time I felt like, wow, like that would be so crazy to go to that. But I also remember I got this weird intuitive feeling that it was not a good idea. And I can't even fully explain why I felt that way, but I just had this intuitive knowing. And what he ended up telling me is that, yeah, he's like, with this party, Lady Gaga wears one color, and I forget what color it was. I think it was white. She wears white, and everyone else wears red. And I just remember him saying that to me very clearly. And I thought at the time, I'm like, that sounds very symbolic to something. There's something very ritualistic to that. Um, but this guy, as I got to know him more and more, I got to see some of his manipulative types of behaviors. He was actually, uh, so he was actually gay and I'm straight. And what I came to find out is I thought the relationship that I was building with him was more of a friendship. And it was him just kind of being friendly because I let him borrow my AirPods. And as we connected more, I thought we were just developing a friendship. And I saw that through the time of me getting to know him more and more, it was like he was trying to manipulate me to kind of be his partner and to be gay with him. And that was not something that I was interested in. And it's just not something that I am. And as time kind of went on, this became clearer and clearer and clearer to the point where I just stopped hanging out with him. I stopped seeing him. And it was unfortunate because I was doing a lot of, therapy with him and he's very good at what he does. And it was actually really helpful for my body and helping energy travel through my nervous system. But once again, when it got to that point, it got to such a point, I should say, where I realized like it was very manipulative what he was trying to do. He was trying to like coerce me by kind of selling me these ideas like, yeah, we can go to the Lady Gaga party. I can bring you into these circles. I can do all these things, but I also want you to be my partner. And then when that became clear to me, I'm like, wow, that is not at all what I'm interested in. And this feels very unhealthy to me. So I just pulled myself back and realized I didn't want anything to do with that. Now, that's important that I mention this because he That's that energy, right? That manipulative type of energy, like, hey, I'll do these things for you as long as you do this with me. That type of energy is the same types of sociopathy and narcissism type of energy that goes behind a lot of these parties. I'll do this thing for you. I'll give you status. I'll give you fame. I'll give you some money. I'll do this. But then I need you to do these things. I need you to go completely against your authentic self. I need you to not listen to your intuition and your instincts and meet my need here so that I can have this power over you, so that I can have a sense of control over you because I know you're not following your core. And that makes me feel more powerful. It makes me feel more in control. So it's just that little energy. And because he was so connected with that scene, I could see how there's a lot of energetic similarities there. There's an energetic resonance between this guy and those types of parties and these types of gatherings, which is important to notice. Now, obviously, with my experience with what I went through and everything, there's a lot more in between that I'm not going to be going into and I'm not going to be sharing. But there's a lot more details and there's a lot more information that I was able to obtain from that relationship that I did have with him at that time. So, with that being said, these parties are real. They are no joke. And it's interesting too, because when I started my Qlippothic initiation, is when I attracted this experience to come into my life to be able to even have an opportunity to kind of see what that was like. So these big gatherings and these parties, these are manifestations of um your it's basically like these huge manifestations of some of your lower desires to see, like, are you going to be authentic? Are you going to go against your nature, go against yourself and get sucked into this whole vortex of trauma and have to face it head on? Or are you going to listen to yourself and follow your intuition and move away from it? And that was the path that I decided to choose. So, not everyone chooses that path, but now we're going to go into a screen share and we're going to watch a video of another guy who had a pretty crazy experience getting invited to one of these parties. And he actually went to the party and he described some of the stuff that he saw take place that was very symbolic and very ritualistic. And I'm going to be giving my commentary on this uh, while he was at this party. So the video is called I Wish I Never Went to This Party. And then there's stars and it says freak off, like the P. Diddy situation. So let's go ahead and drop into a screen share. All right, let's check it out. So this story is the reason I stopped making content for 5 years. You guys remember when all those Vine stars and skit Instagrammers moved to LA in like 2015-ish? So I wasn't a huge creator at the time, but I was there and around it all as all of that stuff was happening. I moved from Chicago to LA 3 weeks after high school with like $2,000 in my pocket that I saved up working at Steak and Shake with this other aspiring creator named David. I was much more into editing and being behind the camera at that time, and he was much more into Vine and vlogs and being. Okay, so he's mentioning he went to that he's involved with another one of these artist or not artists, but one of these other creators named David. So what who he's referring to is David Dobrik. For those of you that know David Dobrik, he had a huge kind of a huge downfall within the past couple years with kind of his own unconscious and his own shadow coming up to the surface and some of the ways that he was not appropriate. And obviously he was not authentic. It was always about the views and always about fun and making people laugh, but not really paying attention to how he might be actually hurting other people. And then he had this huge encounter with a guy named Jeff Wittick, where he actually hurt Jeff Wittick trying to make a funny video, and it caused him to potentially lose one of his eyes. And that was like what initiated this whole downfall with David Dobrik, because all of his trauma started coming up to the surface and he didn't it's not like he really wanted to face it and then shift what it is that he's doing with his content. So he just stopped making content. And I don't know what he's doing in his personal life. Maybe he is going through it. I don't know. But it was just an interesting thing to notice. And that is who he's mentioning. So he's talking about David Dobrik.
on camera. That time of our lives was absolutely crazy. Everybody was broke, posting anything we could onto YouTube to get some attention. I happened to get a spot at the now notorious 1600 Vine Apartments, and David got a spot a little bit closer to USC. Everyone was collaborating with everyone, and it was the era of clickbait YouTube. And to be honest, it was extremely fun for the first few months, until Hollywood started to notice that influencers were the next big thing, and that the landscape of the industry was changing. And we started to get invited to more exclusive parties and events, where it seemed as if old Hollywood was almost grooming new Hollywood. And there was rumors of this one gathering that was happening on a monthly basis, where it seemed like anybody that got invited saw a massive jump in their numbers, secured huge brand deals right after attending. But apparently this gathering worked on a buddy system. Someone had to vouch for you and bring you as a guest. And by blind luck, me and David ended up getting invited. Some talent agents saw me and David shoot a silly skit at a random party. He didn't invite us that second. He just told us that he saw something special in us and took our contact information. And listen, people do that all the time in LA, but this guy had a different feel to him. He wasn't trying to convince us he had connections or hype himself up like everybody else does. He was just super calm and had a sharp way of speaking that demanded respect. He was extremely brief, and after getting our numbers, he just said, "Look out for the invite," and walked away. And this is where it gets weird.
Yeah, it's strange how these things happen. It's like you get this random person that just gives you this sense of like, yeah, you're a special person, and here's a card. Call me. Reach out to me. And that's kind of how my experience was. It's obviously different than theirs, but it was just like a weird encounter, and there was just a lot behind it. So it's interesting stuff.
Gave this guy my address. I only gave him my number, but I ended up getting an invitation by letter. And at the time, I thought that that was so cool. But in retrospect, as an adult looking back at it, that alone was a huge violation of privacy and a major red flag. But at the time, when I tell you I was absolutely buzzing with excitement, when I got it, the letter was so extravagant and detailed. It was gold with black and red lettering that read something like, "Your talents have been noted, your name has been endorsed, and I'll never forget this part. The dreams you've been chasing are a night away through the seventh heaven." And the address was a beautiful home in Laurel Canyon that was set to happen.
That's also interesting. Your dreams are a night away in the seventh heaven. And he's staying, like earlier, if you paid attention, he's staying at the 1600 Vine. And if we break that down in numerology, that would equal 7, because you have 1 plus 6 equaling 7. So that's interesting there. And then when I lived in South Beach, Miami, I was on 7th Street. So that's really fascinating that there's this 7 correlation to this process. And yeah, what's going on there?
That weekend. It also noted to not be a minute late and not to expect to leave before midnight. And at the time, it felt like the Willy Wonka golden ticket. And the excitement doubled when I got a text from David at the same time, in all caps saying, "Did you get one too?" I felt like our lives were about to change. And I was right. David blew up after this party, and I had to go into hiding. I felt like our lives were about to change. And I was right. David blew up after this party, and I had to go into hiding. When I tell you I was on cloud 9 leading up to that party, I mean it. I was so young and naive and delusionally optimistic. I truly believed that I was going to go to this party and leave rich, because it literally seemed like that was happening to the creators around me that attended. I was hyped. I've never been a braggy person, but when you're young and excited, you get consumed by good news and want to talk to your friends and peers about it. So everybody that I chatted with who I knew was a content creator and was in the know about this party, I couldn't help but to tell. And all the feedback was positive and along the lines of, "Let me know how it goes," or "Can you try to get me into the next one?" And even some from bigger creators saying, "I'll see you there," with like a little smirk on their face, like they were pumped for it. Except for one conversation with a creator that most of you probably know. This creator is an extremely positive guy, and he's one of the most wholesome, bubbly, genuine guys I met out there. And when I told him the good news, he looked at me like I told him a tsunami was headed towards the building. The usual joy that this man brought to every conversation turned into real fear and concern. And he made me leave the lobby and come up to his apartment before explaining anything to me. Like he was scared that somebody was going to overhear our conversation. When we got up to his apartment, he was just pacing, like he had no idea how to start this conversation. But when he finally spoke up, all he said was, "Listen, Doug, I know you're excited, but I'm begging you, please do not go. That man is not who you think he is." He was being so frantic, and I could see tears welling up in this guy's eyes. But I was young, and I thought that I knew everything. I didn't even think the talent agent that sent us the invite was important. I was interested in the connections, and I didn't really care if the talent agent was shady or if his intention was to sign me to a bad deal. I thought I'd just say no to any bad contract that he tried to send me, but still get to reap all the benefits of the party. So I tried to pry a little bit and ask follow-up questions, but all he gave me was, "I have a friend who went, and he hasn't been the same since he didn't cooperate. I don't know what he saw or what they did to him, but Doug, I do not want to see that happen to you. I don't know what he saw or what they did to him, but Doug, I do not want to see that happen to you." I start reassuring him that they won't make me do anything that I don't want to do. I don't even drink, let alone take any party favors. So peer pressure isn't much of an issue for me. I make up a lie to get out of the situation because, to be honest, I selfishly wanted to stay excited about this party. And I really didn't want to hear anything negative about it. So I jokingly told him that I'd text him when I got home and that I had to leave to edit some videos tonight. What I was really doing was calling my dad to beg him for $100 to buy a rental suit. Mind you, we were all still poor, and I was living in an apartment that I could barely afford. My dad reluctantly sent me the money, and I immediately texted David to pick me up tomorrow at 5 p.m. so we could both get our suits before the party and grab food before we head to the party at 11. When David picked me up the next day, he was so excited and in such a great mood that I had to hide my concerns from him, at least while we were shopping for the rental suits. I had to manufacture excitement because David always has his camera out, and I wouldn't just be spoiling the mood, I would be ruining the content that he was trying to record. So I went along with it throughout the shopping process. Our plan was to drop his car off at my apartment, walk to the In-N-Out Burger on Sunset Boulevard, eat, and then change into our suits in the bathroom and hop into the Uber, so we didn't smell like burgers. When we finally sat down to eat, I took that opportunity to bring up the warning that my friend gave me the day before in his apartment. I told him everything that he said to me and how scared he looked when he said it, and that I was feeling a little bit worried about going to this party. David cut me off before I even got to finish my sentence and firmly said we're going, and then went on a rant about how my friend is a jealous clout chaser and that he's just salty that his content isn't good enough and would never be invited to something like this. He said it in a half serious, half joking tone like he always does when he wants to get his way. Then he finished off by guilting me and saying, "Doug, don't ruin this opportunity for us. Please just get through this party for me." I'd never heard anybody talk about my friend that way, but I'd known David for so much longer, so I trusted his judgment. So I nodded my head and called the Uber. We changed in the bathrooms and hopped into the Uber, and David starts recording again. So I have to pretend to be excited again. But once we got off the side streets and started driving up Laurel Canyon, I started getting anxious and internally panicking. If you're not familiar with Laurel Canyon, it's filled with beautiful homes, but at night it's extremely dark and borderline freaky, especially when you consider all the history with the Manson murders in that area. Part of me feels like we're dropping ourselves off into a setup, but once we arrive, all of my worries get washed away. We pull into the driveway and this house is beautiful and extravagant, and everyone waiting in line to walk in is smiling and laughing and friendly. So I get excited again. At the door, they take our phones and have us sign an NDA, which isn't uncommon in house parties like this in LA. And they give us a mask and a name tag with funny aliases. My mask looked like a bear and David's looked like a bird.
So that's really interesting. So they give you masks with different names. So right out the gate there, they're basically starting the foundation of the party saying you are not yourself. You are now a mask. You're a different person. So we want to start the manipulation with the foundation of you do not have to be authentic here. You can be separated from who you actually are. And that way, what happens here doesn't matter because you're not you. So that's the first step of manipulation and trying to get someone to be more suggestible, to be willing to separate from their actual intuition and their instincts. Let's take a look.
Alias was Stardust, which David got a crack out of, and his was Banshee. We enter what you could call like the lobby of the house, and as we're walking in, the apparent host of the party starts giving a speech. This man is very eccentric and outspoken, and he's got the cadence of a late night show host, and I spot the agent that invited us standing right behind him. The speech was basically just encouraging everybody to have fun and explaining the itinerary of the night. Apparently, this was a themed room party, and all of the guests were instructed to move to the next room whenever the grandfather clock chimed. He wrapped up his speech with some cheeky joke, and then one line that still irks me to this day. He said, "Have fun now. Our descent starts at midnight." I tried to give David the eyes that I didn't like where this party was going.
So he said, have fun now, and our descent starts at midnight. So that what is the descent? The descent is going into the deeper unconscious. So, once again, a lot of the manipulative tactics, like the occult tactics that are used in these types of situations, is we're getting people to separate from their intuition, separate from their instincts, um, removing them from their authenticity. And then we're going to start doing certain things through different acts, different behaviors, and even ritualistic types of um, processes where we're going to start surfacing stuff in the unconscious mind. So this is going to be related to trauma and all that kind of stuff. So you think you're just having fun. You think it's just, oh, a good time. We're all just here to enjoy ourselves. But then the trauma starts surfacing. And that's when you start panicking more. That's when you start looking towards, guidance, or looking towards someone to save you or to help you understand what's happening when it hits you out of nowhere. And then that's when you're really suggestible to be manipulated and to be influenced, because the people that are kind of orchestrating that whole process, they know what they're doing, and they know that if they can get you in that state where they're playing on your dopamine and they're playing on your lower desires, that once they start surfacing the deeper stuff inside of your system, then you're going to be in a place where you're now looking to them for something important. So it puts you kind of like more in like a survival state where you're now much more suggestible for, I need your help. I'm dependent on you. I'm reliant on you. And that's exactly what, sociopathic and narcissistic people want, is they want that dependency. They want you to depend on them so that they can manipulate and control you, because that's what makes them feel safe and makes them feel better about themselves. All right.
This type of behavior from people that I saw as adults made me extremely uncomfortable. The moment the host wrapped up his speech, a couple of workers came out of the doorway. They were holding a couple sets of long poles. All of a sudden, music started playing, and everybody seemed like they knew what was going on. So I just went along with it. So I guess these parties start off with a big game of limbo. It's funny seeing people dressed so nicely playing a silly child's game, but it's even weirder seeing.
And why are they playing limbo? Why are they playing a child game? Because what are they doing? They're starting to connect with your inner child. So what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to access that fun nature that we're just playing, and that allows the inner child to feel safe so that you can once again lower your guard down, and then they start moving you into those different experiences that keep you uh in that state where you're just seeking all that dopamine, whether it's sex or drugs or food or whatever it is. And once the inner child feels safe, and then you're having all this like energy coming in where you're feeling really good, you're feeling really high, and then they hit you with the descent, or they hit you with something that triggers very deeply in the system at an unconscious level, which is related to trauma. And that's where they try to hook you in and control you. So this is something that takes place, in these types of parties. And that's why he's explaining that's why they were doing limbo in the very beginning, because it is a structured setup to go through this form of indoctrination.
A-list celebrities being so excited to play because everybody had masks on. But when somebody that you grew up watching in movies walks by you with a quarter of their face covered, you still know it's them. I was amazed with how inviting and willing to introduce themselves these people were. I was expecting at least an undertone of uppityness in them, but it seemed like everybody was involving everybody in conversation, and they were frequently introducing themselves to me with their alias, of course. The only thing weird about it was something that I didn't notice until the third person did it. When they shook my hand, they pressed their thumb into the soft part between my thumb and my pointer finger. And I only recognized the pattern because the third guy gave me a big smile and said, "This must be your first time here." In retrospect, this should have alarmed me, but it seemed like they got friendlier when they realized that it was my first time here. So I didn't really think anything of it. But before I got to ask any follow-up questions about this odd handshake, the first grandfather clock chime went off, and everybody excitedly rushed into the second room. When I finally got in there, I was taken aback by the dramatic decor change. Everything in this room was different shades of blue. The music was romantic, and all the furniture was cabana beds and love seats. I stood there for a second trying to realize what was different, but I couldn't put my finger on it until some girl walked by and caressed my shoulder in a really flirty manner. The decor changed, but the way everybody was acting was drastically different. Before, everybody seemed to be outgoing and inviting and friendly, but the second they stepped foot into this room, they became touchy, flirty, and suggestive. I was only 19 at the time, so this type of behavior from people.
So notice what he said there: touchy, flirty, and suggestive. And once again, this is preparing the system to be more receptive and to be more ready to be suggested to by someone else, so to speak, or other people. And it's also playing with that sexual energy too. So, the sexual energy starts to rise within the body. You start to desire a little bit more, and that's making you feel more suggestible.
That I saw as adults made me extremely uncomfortable, especially when I saw that the cabana beds had curtains that you could close for privacy. And I realized that these people weren't just being suggestive, they meant it. I tried to give David the eyes that I didn't like where this party was going, but he seemed to be really enjoying the female attention, so I was on my own. I basically stayed in perpetual motion and walked laps until the next chime went off, so I didn't have to sit next to anybody for too long and let them get too comfortable. The clock finally went off and everybody rushed to the next room immediately. The weirdest part was the people that were in the private sections didn't even bother redressing except for the mask. I was in no rush rush to get to the next room, but I could see into it over the crowd of everybody's head. The walls were bright orange, but the smells that were wafting in from that room were amazing. And when I finally got in there, it was like the Hogwarts feast. It was table after table of the most delicious spreads I've ever seen. There was full tables for seafood, full tables for meats, full tables of sushi, and an entire wall of spirits. I almost started enjoying myself again. Until I saw the way these people were treating this food. They were disrespectfully biting chunks out of delicious prime rib roasts. They were just shoving copious amounts of high-grade sashimi into their mouths and eating caviar like it was cereal. The way that they were just grabbing with their hands and just spitting out things that they didn't like onto the floor ruined my appetite. At this point, I wanted nothing to do with these people. So I went up to the only familiar face in the room. The agent that invited me was the only other person not eating. So I approached him and lifted up my mask so he'd recognize me, considering we'd only met one time. Before I even got out my greeting or got my mask halfway off my face, he abruptly pressed my mask back into place and sharply said, "Mask stay on till the 6th room." He did it in a way that seemed like I was embarrassing him for not knowing the rules. So to ease the tension, I jokingly replied, "So we're only halfway there, huh?" He didn't laugh or make eye contact. He just dismissively replied, "I encourage you to engage in the festivities. A slow drip is better than a flood." He started to walk towards the door as the clock chimed for the next room, like he knew it was about to go off. I didn't like that interaction at all. He's the one that invited me here, and he seemed to have no interest in talking to me. I just kept going over what he said the entire time while we were in the next room. This room was yellow and basically just a casino. I wanted to talk to David privately and let
So the reason why all the different rooms have different colors is because these colors are associated with different energetic centers on the body. And they're also going to have connections to different planetary energies as well. So blue is going to be Jupiter. I'm forgetting off the top of my head exactly which center that's associated with. I think it might be the throat center, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have orange, that's going to be the spleen center on the body. That's going to be the planet Mercury. And then yellow is going to be the solar plexus, and that's going to be associated with the sun. So all of these different colors are playing different roles within the body too when you go into these different rooms. Um, so yeah,
him know that I wanted to leave, but he seemed to just be caught up in the momentum of the party. Plus, there was a roulette table in the room, and David's freakishly good at roulette. So at this point, the winning streak that he's building is the center point of the party. I can't fully focus on what the agent said to me because I have to pretend to be excited about David's winning streak in a fake casino where you're not actually winning money. And like clockwork, the chime goes off. The entire party starts rushing to the next room again, and the vibe changes dramatically. I'm the last person to walk into the bright red room. This room didn't seem to have a specific activity like the others. It was just empty and bright red, and everybody was whispering to each other. For a split second, I thought it might be a big game of telephone or something silly like that. But as I started walking through and brushing shoulders with these people and hearing what they were saying to each other, I started questioning everything. The same people that I saw laughing and celebrating and eating together were whispering the most heinous, offensive comments directly to each other. I mean, things that you wouldn't even say behind your friend's back, they were saying it to their face. I'm talking friendship-ending secrets and personal opinions about each other laced with envy and jealousy. I hurried to a quiet corner because I was sick of hearing everybody's dirty laundry after walking around for a minute and a half. And it all clicked. I knew exactly what this party was. I see the host ask the first person in line a question before having them repeat something that he said. When I tell you I am done with this party, I'm absolutely not doing that. All the dots start connecting in my head while everybody's being horrible to each other around me. I'm trying to recap the whole night and remember the order of each room to solidify my suspicions. But the chime for the next room goes off. This time, everybody gets eerily quiet and calm, like they got all of their venom out. The host of the party announces for all of the newcomers to come to the front. All of the attendees form a single file line in front of the next room's door. There's about 10 other newcomers in front of me and David, and the agent that invited us is standing to the left of the door, and the host of the party is standing to the right. The host has a pile of books on the table next to him. I see the host ask the first person in line a question and then grab a book based on his answer. He would present the book to the person and place a diamond-shaped metal symbol on top of it before having them repeat something that he said. Then he'd take their mask off and let them enter the next room. I couldn't make out exactly what he was doing until there was only 2 people ahead of me in line. The books were Bibles, Qurans, Torahs, and so on. He would ask the person, "And which one is yours?" Whichever they chose, he'd grab it and place the metal symbol on top of it. He'd have you put your hand on top of the metal symbol and then repeat, "I am my own God. I bow to nobody but myself." When I tell you I am done with this party, and I whip my head around and
yeah. And so the reason why they're doing that is because they're basically looking to prepare people to be sociopathic and narcissistic in nature too, because that's how the entire organization operates. And they want you not in the way where it's like, I am my own God and God exists outside of me as well. But they're, once again, they're prepping you to be narcissistic and sociopathic. So they want to set the stage where you deny the idea that there is something outside of yourself that is also a source consciousness or a godlike consciousness. And they want you to kind of deny that, so that you can see yourself as the only God, or you can see yourself as the center of attention of what matters the most. Because when you start that process, then you're starting a process of separation from you to other people and from you to the world around you. And then that allows you to be manipulated a lot more as well, because now you're kind of cutting yourself off from that source connectedness of all things. So it's interesting that they kind of came to that point in this process of the party after the red room as well.
Tell David, I'm absolutely not doing that. David whispered back in a joking tone like he always does. Dude, it's just a party. Who cares? I'll see you in the next room. And he skipped me in line to show me that he'd do it first to make me feel more comfortable. He went through with it and giggled his way into the next room. It was my turn, so I tried to play it cool and whisper to the host, do you mind if I skip this part? It's making me a little bit uncomfortable. I thought he'd subtly break character and reassure me that this is just a party theme and it's all good. Instead, he whispered back to me in a really kind tone. Of course, man, don't worry about it. Just take your mask off and turn around. I was relieved for about a split second before the agent that invited me here grabbed my arm and started guiding me towards the exit. And I see that everybody that was behind me in line is staring at me straight faced. I look back at the host and he's standing up and loudly shouts like he's starting a chant. The price was not paid. And then everybody in line that was staring at me chants in unison like they knew exactly what to do. Remove the profane. And they repeat it over and over until I'm through the exit door. The price was not paid. Remove the profane. The price was not paid. Remove the profane. So the agent.
Yeah, so that's going to be some super significant cult like behavior when people are doing that, because they're basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to shame you and they're trying to guilt you, for the decision that you made. And then that creates fear for everyone else that doesn't want to participate in that act or participate in that next step. So they're saying the price was not paid, the profane must leave. Um, And yeah, and is that authentic? Is that real? No. It's like, what price do you have to pay? Like, so yeah, very dangerous, manipulative types of organized behavior in what we're seeing here.
Walks me to the closest door. He doesn't even walk me to the front of the party and out the front door. He just puts me out into the backyard. It's 4 a.m. My friend's still inside. I don't have my phone. So I decide to walk around the right side of the house because that's where all of the party attendees were kind of headed. Let me see if I could peek in and maybe flag down David to let him know I got kicked out. And there's some windows to the next room. But of course, these windows are like big church stained glass windows. And you can't really see through stained glass windows like the colored ones. But if you go really, really close and you look through the white parts, you could kind of see clearly what is on the inside. And this room is like a bizarre church replica without all of the seating. It's just a big church-like room. And all of the people that were in there had their masks off. And it was like a big circle. It almost looked like an initiation. And all of these celebrities are standing around in a circle around the other 9 new people. It was 10 excluding me. And there was big TV grade cameras recording. And it looked like the group of celebrities and everybody else that was there was kind of cheering them on. But then there was clearly people in there that were much more serious and kind of threatening. And the 10 new people were in the middle of this room being forced to do horrible things, things that I wish I could unsee. And the new people clearly didn't want to do these things. They were being forced to do these things. And they were clearly recording it. And I see my friend being forced to do these horrible things in front of these people and in front of these cameras. I just start panicking. I don't know what to do. So in my head, I'm like, I just need to get out of here. So I start speed walking to the.
Yeah, so this is obviously like a this is where the descent really comes in. The really deep programming and manipulation happens. So everything up leading to this moment was meant to really stimulate your senses and make you really feel good and make you feel safe about what's happening. And then you get led to this room. And now you're in a position where you're being blackmailed, you're being recorded, and you're being coerced by other people that are on board with everything to just follow through with it and do these things that you don't really want to do. And now you're being recorded. So, most people are just going to go along with it because they're afraid to go against the grain and they're afraid to stand up. And who knows, like in some of these situations, they might actually potentially hurt you or threaten you in a way that is not safe at all. Like who knows what could happen. But this is very ritualistic as well because they're utilizing occultism in all of this to uh you know once again kind of mock the name of religion, once again associating that self worship aspect of things, like we're going against the grain of modern religious belief, and we're doing it in this like fake church setup. So we're mocking that name of religion, we're mocking the name of God, we are our own God. And now we're setting you up in a situation where we're doing like an initiation where we're making deals with the unconscious mind or with the subconscious mind to uh, go against our intuition and go against our instincts so that we can become a part of this collective and get the benefits that come out of this collective. And now you're being recorded. So all of it is caught on camera. So if you threaten the organization or you decide to leave, you now have video evidence that you were doing things that are very inappropriate to be doing. So it's very manipulative. Let's take a look.
Front of the house, and I'm thinking I need to get out of this gate. There's only one street. We're on Laurel Canyon, so it's either I go left and start running towards Studio City, or I go right and start running towards West Hollywood. I'm not about to go knock on other people's doors. I'm just trying to get back to civilization, and I'm trying to remember if we're closer to Studio City or if we're closer to West Hollywood. I don't even know. As I get to the front of the house, one of the employees is standing there, and he's standing in front of a car, and he has my phone. I'm not sure if he knows that I just saw everything, so I'm kind of standing there deer in headlights, but he just politely goes, "Here's your phone and here's your ride. Don't worry, the driver will take you home." So I take my phone and I sit in the car and I'm trying to gauge to see if this driver has any malicious intent, but he doesn't seem to. And within the first 3 minutes, I know that they don't think I saw anything. They were just getting my stuff prepared and my car prepared to take me home. Because they're under the impression that I didn't see anything too bad. And I got kicked out before any horrible things started happening to people inside of this party. So I get in the car and I'm checking my phone, and my phone was fully charged when I got here. So I don't know what they did, but my phone won't turn on. I have to sit through this 30-minute car ride. One of my best friends is back at this party getting mistreated and recorded doing horrible things, and I can't tell anybody. So I get through this 30-minute horrible suspense-filled car ride thinking about all of the people that were so nice to me inside of this party, and the whole intent of this party was to butter me up to get me to do these horrible things. And when I finally get back to my apartment, I run upstairs, I plug my phone into the charger, and the first texts that come through are from my friend Joe. And I completely forgot that my friend Joe was coming to visit me. He was coming on a little mini vacation, and I was going to play tour guide and show him around the city. So now I'm thinking I only have like 4.5 hours to sleep before I have to go pick up my friend from the airport. And I still don't know if my other friend is okay. So I'm blowing up David's phone because he's still at this party, but I set a timer so I get to the airport to pick up my other friend. So I barely get any sleep. I drive to LAX to go pick up Joe, and I drive him back to my apartment. And when I'm coming back into my apartment, David's in the lobby and he's talking to some other big creators, like bouncing video ideas. It's like 9:30, 10 a.m. at this point. So we're just kind of having coffee by the cafe and chatting. I tell Joe to go upstairs to my apartment and drop off his luggage. And I go ask David if I could talk to him really quick. I'm clearly very distressed, and he's being very jokey with me, and he doesn't seem like anything bad happened. And he's just kind of making fun of me for getting kicked out of the party. I'm just letting him talk for a little bit. And I finally tell him I was looking in through the next window. I saw what they made him do, and I was just asking him if he's okay. And the second I said that, he immediately switched on me and he started damn near cussing me out and saying friendship ending things. And his eyes turned from happy and giddy to filled with almost fear and a little bit of betrayal. When he stormed off, he pulled out his phone and he was calling somebody as if he was like reporting something back to them. I made
Wow. So that's deep. So that's really deep. It shows how deep that whole process was embedded within David's unconscious mind. And it was like he was just trying to wear this mask of everything's funny, everything's okay, like I'm just joking about everything and life is what it is. And then the second this guy, his friend, brings up that he saw what happened in that room, it like triggered that unconscious memory of what he just did and what he had to go through and the shame and the guilt and the fear of that ever coming to the surface caused him to just switch and have this triggered reaction that brought him out of his character because he's obviously not being authentic. So it's really, really interesting to see how that stuff can happen, and how people kind of will try to repress those things and push those things down. And there's even a lot of manipulation within these cult organizations where they hypnotize you to not um, take what you went through seriously. So make it almost like it's not that big of a deal. There's like literal hypnosis that occurs, and that can even happen ritualistically, and it can happen neuro linguistically, um, where you don't even really like you might leave that abuse and forget that it even happened. Like it's pretty intense how that stuff can work. But let's take a look.
Really start freaking out. I assume that he's telling me that I saw what they did. And now I have my friend upstairs who thinks he's just on vacation. When I just saw hyper successful, rich people doing unspeakable acts, and they have all of the resources to come after me. They know where I live, and David isn't even on my side because the dirt that they have on him now. I have to pretend that everything's okay to Joe because he flew all the way out here for a vacation, and I don't even really know how bad the situation is. I don't even know how to tell him about everything that happened the night before. And I promised Joe that we're going to go to Runyon Canyon this morning. So he goes and changes into hiking gear, and I drive him over to run.
All right. So this is pretty much the end of the video. There's more to it. I encourage you to look it up and watch it for yourself. If you want to see the end piece, it says, "I wish I never went to this party. Freak off." Look it up on YouTube. You can find it. I'm going to wrap it up here. I got a client call that's coming up any minute now, so I have to get ready for it. So basically, the way that story ends is he ends up getting gang stalked. So this organization literally ends up like actually getting access to his personal living situation, and they start messing with certain things in his actual living space. Like they come into his home when he's not there and things of that nature. And they start doing things, kind of showing him a message that, hey, if you speak about this, we know where you live and we have access to actually touch you. So you better not speak about any of this. And it gets to the point where he gets so afraid of all this gang stalking that's happening that he ends up moving away, like to a completely different state. He moves from, I believe, California to Las Vegas to get out of it. So if you want to watch that, go ahead and watch that. That's a whole nother layer of how this, abuse can occur in these types of things. Um, but with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I wanted to break down today. I think it's valuable that I brought this to your awareness so that you can understand these things do happen. And it's not that the thing itself is evil or it's wrong. It's that obviously it's abusive and it's not a good thing to do at all. But there are aspects of ourself that sometimes we're not being honest with that puts us in resonance with these types of situations. And then we try to explore it and get deeper into it. And then we find out what it actually is. So it's these types of systems that actually show us the deepest core wounds and traumas that are in our system when we realize what we're engaged with. And then when we start that process of trying to separate from it. So for a lot of people that get engaged with this, I mean, there's a lot of karma that's building up for them. And they're eventually going to have to face that karma and look at it directly and go through a process of healing it. And in the long run, at some point, there will be a healing that takes place. Some are going to get it quicker than others. Others are going to go down with that ship and they're going to have to face that in a different lifetime. But long story short, obviously the stuff is real. This stuff really does take place. It's important to know that, but to not get too afraid. Like this is not, these groups, they don't just come after you. Like they're not looking for anyone. They're looking for people that are already in resonance for that type of manipulation. And they're going to try to play on those lower desires to get you hooked in. And as long as you know what you're working with and you're staying true to your core, then you're going to be able to better navigate that in the way that you can. All right. So with that being said, if you got value from this, hit the thumbs up, drop down in the comment section. Let me know what you learned. Hit the notification bell, get notified whenever I post. I'm posting every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's going to further connect you to everything I do, and check out my services. Make sure you look into my Patreon at the first link in the description below for exclusive content At this point, there's about 1,400 active members, tons of different exclusive content on occultism, everything, literally a whole magic training course that you can go through from start to finish to develop your uh, understanding of how to actually be an occult practitioner and what you need to know, all the way down to videos that cover trauma and doing deeper shadow work and regulating your nervous system. I've got so much over there. Tier 3 and 4 is an entire ritual service that I offer. Very powerful. It helps to support you through that process of working with your deeper unconscious mind and bringing it to the surface so that you can merge with your shadow more. And then it can start working with you rather than resisting you. All right. So if you want to take advantage of it, first link. Second link is where you can book calls with me, one-on-ones or mentorships. I would love to work with you. Also at the second link, you can book a tarot card reading with Alexia. Third link is a LUCIFERS Foundation course. It gives you step-by-steps on what you need to know to develop a relationship with Lucifer. Fourth link is the YouTube memberships. Join the Universal Mastery family and also gain some access to exclusive content as well. And then the fifth link is my book recommendations. With that being said, I'm going to wrap it up here. I appreciate all of you very, very much. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of the day or nights, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.